past June, an article in the St. Cloud Times caught my eye. Kids wearing bike helmets this summer could be cited with free ice cream cone. The article described how local law enforcement could catch kids who were biking, scootering, skateboarding, or doing whatever else that required a helmet, and award these kids with a coupon for a free Dairy Queen ice cream cone. The article went on to say how this simple practice of recognizing kids for doing the right thing by wearing their helmet can not only prevent future injuries and provide a safer environment for kids, but can increase positive relationships and trust with police. I thought, how cool is that? Free ice cream for doing what's expected. This concept of recognizing kids for doing the right thing resonates with me because in local schools and school districts across the state, educators have been very purposeful about using positive reinforcement practices similar to this example. And as a school administrator in St. Cloud for over 20 years, I've had the privilege to implement as well as lead training of hundreds of school teams on what is called positive behavior supports. This leads me to the message that I hope to convey tonight for you, and that is to pause, think about, and truly embrace how you can more positively interact with children, and then likewise be more intentional around developing robust relationships. Sounds simple, right? Just be more positive with kids? The fact is, our desire for improved relationships is often circumvented by a draw to the negative, especially with children. It seems adults tend to punish when misbehavior occurs. Case in point, I recall a specific incident in my early years as a high school principal. I happened to be in the cafeteria during a late lunchtime when a banana peel went airborne towards garbage bins that lined a nearby wall. It missed. Well, I think you can all agree that it's pretty common knowledge you don't throw food in the cafeteria. I noticed the student who threw the banana peel and approached him with the intent that I'm going to really show him. And as I got closer to the student, all the other kids became extremely quiet. I thought, that's good. Now I have everybody's attention. Well, I was mad, so I raised my voice and said, "What are you doing? You're in high school and still throwing food?" Now the student mumbled something under his breath like, "What's the big deal?" Well, that irritated me even more, so I marched him to my office, yelled at him again, called his parent, and put him in detention for insubordination. I was wound up the rest of the evening. Well, later that night, I reflected back on the incident and surmised that I'd spent nearly 1 hour of my workday with a banana peel. And additional time feeling irritable. What was I thinking? For a banana peel? And what did the student actually learn? Probably that Mr. Eisenreich is a crabby person. Well, I vowed to make a change. So the following week, I'm back in the cafeteria. Different student, different fruit. This time it's an apple. Same garbage bin, same result. It missed. And as I did previously, I approached the student who threw the apple and raising my voice said, "What do you think you're doing?" Well, the student responded back somewhat sarcastically, "Throwing my apple away." But instead of immediately yelling some more and removing the student, I used a bit of my experience as a former baseball player and coach and calmly said, "You know, the next time, you need to keep your elbow up and make sure you follow through to maintain accuracy." Well, all the kids laughed in that area. The student and I then had a brief conversation about throwing food and other expectations in the cafeteria. He apologized, picked up the apple, gently placed it in the bin. I did not have another issue with this student ever again. The incident was over in 2 minutes, and I now had formed a new and positive relationship with this young man. You see, when I go out and conduct positive behavior supports training for school teams throughout Minnesota, a key aspect is you can't change students' behaviors without changing the environment around them. Simply stated, but oh so challenging, is you change kids' behaviors by changing adult behaviors. Again, you change kids' behaviors by changing adult behaviors. By creating environments that center on the positive, we can more positively impact a child academically as well as socially and emotionally. To do this, we need to think about moving away from that traditional model of reacting and punishing when misbehavior occurs and place more emphasis on teaching and reinforcing the behaviors that we want and need from our children. Think about this. When a child doesn't know how to read, we teach them how to read. When a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach them how to swim. When a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. And probably pray a little bit, right? But when a child doesn't know how to behave, do we teach or do we punish? By teaching and reinforcing the behaviors that are desired, we can create more predictable environments for children. The kids receiving a free ice cream cone for wearing their helmet are much more apt to continue wearing their helmet. The student in the cafeteria, never seen throwing food again. Each of these examples demonstrates how a positive change in an adult behavior led to positive changes in kids' behavior. This emphasis on positive behavior supports dates back to the 1980s when educators at the University of Oregon were researching students with behavior disorders. During their research, they discovered that schools must place more focus on prevention, teaching specific social skills, and make it school-wide, meaning good for all kids and not just those demonstrating extreme disruptive behaviors. Today, this process is utilized in over 29,000 schools across the country. Well, to create this school-wide system, educators must first identify a small number of behavioral expectations. Again, what we want kids to do rather than what we don't want them to do. We stay away from using terms such as no running in the hallways and no loud voices. These expectations are broad-based, positively stated, and usually single terms such as demonstrating respect, safety, responsibility. Next, we define what these expectations mean in the context of the setting of the schools. In the classrooms, in the hallways, in the cafeteria, out on the playground, and on the bus. We then need to, as I said before, teach the expectations. For example, to ensure that our hallways are safe with little congestion, we teach students to walk on the right-hand side. Now, this may seem like a very simple act, but it's often not understood by youngsters, particularly elementary-age kids. We replace no loud voices with use your conversation voice. Now, this may mean different things to certain students, where raising your voice level at home is common practice. So we need to be conscious of cultural backgrounds and differentiate between what's acceptable at home and what may not align with our practices at school. Above all, we teach, and we repeat it again and again. Consistency really matters. Two prominent instructional scholars, Bruce Joyce and Beverly Showers, determined that for a child to learn something new, it must be repeated 8 times. Ironically, kids have proven to be better learners than adults because they also found that for an adult to learn something new, it must be repeated, on average, 25 times. Joyce and Showers also found out that for a child to unlearn an old behavior and replace it with a new behavior, that new behavior must be repeated an astonishing 28 times. Well, despite our constant reminders, there are children who are still going to misbehave. And when they do, it's important for adults to remain calm when redirecting kids. In my banana peel example, I actually escalated the situation by using my authority and privilege as a principal. With the apple thrower, I remained calm and allowed the situation to be about the behavior and not about the student throwing the apple. I was able to de-escalate and use it as a learning opportunity where the student took ownership of his actions without becoming confrontational. So you've heard about these practices that we use in schools to support student behavior. What about outside of school settings? Our police now have a new method to positively reinforce kids with an ice cream cone. What about at home? For parents with kids at home, you could set up a short list of behavioral expectations similar to respect, safety, responsibility. You could then take these expectations and place them into the context of what occurs naturally at home. Wake-up time, breakfast and dinner time, homework, social media, technology, gaming time, and so on. You could then take these expectations and use them throughout your daily life, whether you're on vacation or, again, as I said, at home. For those of you that do have expectations in place, are they clear and understood? Again, as I said before, you need to teach them to your kids, and consistency really matters. Of course, not all children are the same. Some have social emotional needs that warrant different actions. Perhaps a child is experiencing some trauma that's impacting their behavior. These expectations still apply, and parents can make adjustments that best fit the needs of the individual child. We have an obligation to provide environments for children that are safe, consistent, and positive, that help support their learning and success. Our local police have a positive mechanism, free ice cream, for impacting the children in the St. Cloud area. Whether you're a parent, grandparent, have nieces and nephews, or neighbor kids that you interact with, we can all do our part by increasing the positive recognition we provide our kids for doing the right thing. Every adult interaction is a teachable moment that influences what happens next. Here's a simple way for you to gain awareness of your own interactions. Gather a bunch of coins and place them into your back pocket. Each time you have a positive interaction with a child, take one of those coins and place it into your left front pocket. Each time you have a negative interaction with a child, take one of those coins, place it into your right front pocket. The goal is to have 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. When you reach that 5-to-1 ratio, congratulate yourself, perhaps with an ice cream cone. And then start over again, which may mean my next TED Talk will be about how to go on a diet.